everyone. Been a while yet again, but now I'm back with a slightly different format of video. There are a lot of Doctor Who theories that I've wanted to discuss on this channel, but sometimes there isn't enough to say about them to make a whole video. So in this case, I'm going to be doing a roundup of 3 smaller theories in one package. If this format's successful, I might do more occasionally, but regardless, onto the theories. I'll start with the most timely of them, the Ninth Doctor's reflection. Christopher Eccleston has finally announced his return to the role of the Ninth Doctor after 15 years, in the form of a series of Big Finish box sets coming in 2021. As Eccleston had distanced himself from the role for quite some time, his softening on the part has come as a very welcome surprise to his fans. One of the things that was most frequently discussed in the wake of this announcement was when exactly in the Ninth Doctor's timeline the Big Finish adventures will take place. In the course of these discussions, I've seen many dismiss the possibility of these stories taking place prior to the Ninth Doctor's first televised adventure in Rose. The principal reason for this is the scene in which he examines his reflection in the mirror and comments on it as if he's seeing it for the first time. However, I have something of a weird explanation to address how the Ninth Doctor could have lived for some time prior to this, all the while not seeing his own reflection. It goes back to 1966's The Power of the Daleks, in which we see the aftermath of the first time the Doctor regenerates. In the course of the second Doctor's bumbling around in his post-regenerative confusion, his companions hold up a mirror to show him his new face. This mirror shows the first Doctor's likeness for a moment before fading into the second Doctor's face. Now, it's likely that this is just intended as a device to show the audience that this strange man bumbling around in the TARDIS is in fact the Doctor. However, if we take the scene a little bit more literally, we can say that this is the Doctor's residual mental self-image taking time to update to the new reality. The complexities of a Time Lord mind may take a while to adjust to what's truly happened. Granted, this doesn't happen in a few other instances where the Doctor views their reflection shortly after regenerating, but as far as the Doctor is concerned at least, this is the first time he's ever done so, and so he may not be as used to the idea. Regardless, I'm of the opinion that a more drastic version of this delayed reflection phenomenon could apply to the Ninth Doctor. The mental image of the War Doctor could have lingered in his mind for far longer than normal due to the after effects of his trauma and guilt over his actions in the Time War. Of course, Stephen Moffat had a different explanation for this in the novelization of Day of the Doctor when the War Doctor's regeneration takes place. The novel explains that the guilt-ridden Doctor destroys every mirror in the TARDIS so as not to have to confront his own reflection. While this explanation works, it's unlikely he wouldn't run across a reflective surface anywhere else he might end up on subsequent adventures. So I think my explanation and Moffat's are compatible with one another. So there you go, Nick Briggs. If you want to set Ninth Doctor adventures prior to Rose, you can have this one for free. The Fifth Doctor's Impossible Celery. The Doctor is no stranger when it comes to bizarre fashion choices, but one of the most infamous is the stick of celery pinned to the Fifth Doctor's lapel. The iconic vegetable goes unexplained up until the Fifth Doctor's final story, and is lambasted in his reappearance in the Children in Need special, Time Crash. But in spite of all the attention the celery gets, no one ever seems to point out that, at least initially, the celery should not exist. In case you haven't seen Castrovalva, the Fifth Doctor's debut story, or if it's just been a while, here's a quick recap. The second half of the story takes place in the titular town of Castrovalva. Unbeknownst to the Doctor and his companions, the entire town is in fact a massive block transfer computation created by his companion Adric while held prisoner by the Master as an elaborate trap for the Doctor. The preceding story, Legopolis, explains the concept of a block transfer computation. It's essentially a mathematical process so complex it brings physical matter into being. These are so complex and nuanced that they can only be done by a living mind, as doing them with a computer will result in the calculations changing the nature of the computer itself. The Doctor takes the sprig of celery from the refreshments he is offered when he first arrives in Castrovalva. The story ends with the computation stopping once Adric is set free and Castrovalva ceases to exist. During the walk back to the TARDIS, the Doctor then pins the celery to his lapel at the conclusion of the story. The only problem is, the celery came from Castrovalva, so it should have been part of the block transfer computation, and thus ceased to exist along with the rest of the city. I could buy that he replaces it in subsequent stories. After all, it probably would have wilted fairly quickly, but this particular piece of celery is suspect. Something of a nitpick, I know, but it's an interesting oversight in something that became an iconic part of the Fifth Doctor's appearance. I wonder if any expanded media will ever offer an explanation for this one. The Doctor needs additional help to regenerate. So, it's long been known that like with many other Time Lord activities, such as piloting the TARDIS and not interfering in the universe, the Doctor is not particularly good at regenerating. Typically after a regeneration, the Doctor will be either unhinged and manic for a while, or spend a good long time unconscious. But I'm going to propose that this goes a step further, and that the Doctor is even worse at regenerating than it appears, because of the observation that they've rarely, if ever, regenerated without outside help. It's long been theorized that the TARDIS has a system that aids in the regenerative process. This goes back to the first time we ever see the Doctor change form, where the newly born second Doctor says, "It's part of the TARDIS. Without it I couldn't survive." Of course, the idea that regeneration itself is simply a function of the TARDIS is contradicted by later instances, so perhaps the Doctor was referring to the assistance the TARDIS provides. So that means any of the times we see the Doctor regenerate in the TARDIS, we can assume the ship is helping him out. This just leaves the times the Doctor regenerates outside of the ship, which for the most part all involve some other form of outside assistance. These instances are the War Game. Season 6B notwithstanding, this regeneration was artificially done by the Time Lords, so it's presumably aided somehow, most likely in a similar manner to how the TARDIS itself does. Planet of the Spiders. This time, the Doctor's regeneration is kicked off by Cho Jae, quote, giving the process a little push. Logopolis. The Doctor merges with the Watcher, the enigmatic figure that's been following him for the whole serial. Side note, I have another theory that this particular transition isn't a true regeneration at all, but that's a topic for another video. The TV movie. This is the one time the Doctor has regenerated outside the TARDIS without some sort of additional aid. It's worth noting, however, that this regeneration is a particularly traumatic one. The Doctor is very disoriented and suffers from amnesia for some time afterwards. And besides, this movie is also pretty fast and loose with the series' prior continuity anyway, right? Finally, Night of the Doctor. In this instance, the Doctor chooses to regenerate into a warrior, aided by an elixir tailored by the Sisterhood of Karn to become exactly what he had intended. With the one exception of the TV movie, the Doctor has always had some kind of other interference to aid them in a regeneration. If the Doctor does in fact need help to regenerate, it's very lucky that they've managed to always get it every time. I don't know if there's much to truly base this theory on, but the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. In any case, that's all I have this time. I hope these series proved interesting to you. Let me know in the comments if you liked this new format of smaller, multi-theory videos and whether you'd like me to continue doing them. Thanks for listening to what I have to say, and have a great day.